Now your screen is very clear.
Yeah.
Yes, very clear.
That means that the internet connection is also influenced my screen.
Yes. Yes. I saw Architect Embong is in.
Mhm.
Assalamualaikum, Architect Embong. Can you hear me?
Waalaikumsalam. Yes, very clear.
Architect Embong is also a graduate from Oxford Brookes University.
Ah,
Uh,
so we
Uh,
are from the same university.
yeah.
same alma mater.
Same alma mater, yeah.
Hey, where are you, Architect Embong? Why so dark your face?
Oh, we are starting working from faculty, so I'm in the
Oh.
office.
Mm.
So because of the closure of hair salon, also you didn't cut your hair. So we're gonna start in another 3 minutes. Waiting for others to enter the studio. So good to see you. We have not been seeing each other for the last, I think, 2 years. Yeah. The last time I was invited to UiTM Puncak Alam. Architect Embong is a lecturer in UiTM Puncak Alam.
Yeah.
Mm.
So he was the head of department, but I think no longer, right? You're no longer
Yeah,
the head.
no longer. Luckily, no longer.
Luckily, you said luckily. So I'm not lucky. I'm the head of the department.
Oh.
But you just started, right? You just
Yeah,
started.
yeah, just started
Yeah,
like
and when
1 year.
you become the
It's
head
my
of
first year.
department, then the pandemic came in.
Yeah, it's very challenging.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
difficult time.
yeah.
Mm. And just a introduction before we start, I think we plan to have this lecture earlier in the semester to coincide with our students starting on the studio. But unfortunately, Dr. Mangde here was infected by the COVID-19. So he was hospitalized for 29 days. So, so that's why we only be able to invite him again to talk to us now. Or although we already in week 11, week 11, and the student is actually now towards the last 4 weeks of their preparations for their final presentation.
Mm.
So I think, but I think it still will be beneficial for them to listen to the talk and to take notes on what you need, what you are able to share with us, because COVID-19 post pandemic also is one of the criteria that the student has to consider when they design their project. So I think that's a short introduction lah. Later I will do the formal one when we started.
Normal gitu di kampus.
Okay, doctor, can we start now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another POSA Talk series. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra from Universitas Warmadewa, the head of Architecture's department in UNWA, to be with us to share his experience related to the topic, which is how COVID-19 pandemic impacted the architecture. Okay. A short introduction here. Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra was first educated at Udayana University in Bali. Later, he continued his master and PhD at Oxford Brookes University in Oxford, England, and came back at 2017
Yes.
and joined the Universitas Warmadewa. And he has published many journals related to related to traditional settlement and disaster vulnerabilities and architecture identity of Bali and many more other topics. And without further ado, I will pass the floor to Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra to present his talk on this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Abdul Muluk. Let me share my screens. Okay. The topic today is very relevant with our life, especially with the design world, with the pandemic among us. As Pak Abdul Muluk said, I was infected by the virus earlier this year on the 28th of January 2021. Not only me, but also my wife and three of our kids get infected with COVID-19, and for more or less 29 days, I was hospitalized in a hospital. No one are allowed to visit us except the medical person, and they wear full body protection. So it's very strange situations when you are visited by astronauts every day. Yeah? So they wear full body protection. We don't know when the virus enter our body and it penetrate our immune. We don't know. But as far as I remember, we spent like a week or two before the doctor diagnosed us with COVID-19. With busy days, we visited our family at our kampung, and then we have our neighbors, and then my wife and I also visited the traditional market, and we also had some meetings with our colleagues in the office, and we don't know where the virus came in. So I will reflect on my own experience, and then I will try to share some of materials that I collected during my quarantine period. First, I will review the pandemic timeline, how it causes fear, and what policies established by government in response to the pandemic. And then the second one, I will reflect my own experience before I get diagnosed, during in the hospital, and then after COVID-19 virus. And then I will try to evaluate the resilience of our built environment in responding to the pandemic. First, the pandemic occurs many times in our life, yeah, in the world. I mean, so since first period before centuries, we have they call it Antonine plague, and then we have Ciprianic plague, and then we also have Justinianic plague, and one of the longest pandemic that we have is tuberculosis, that occurs around the first decade of this century, 20th century. And architecture react to the pandemic. Let's say when in the 19th century, we got infected by cholera, typhus, and yellow fever. The government tried to organize waste treatment system, and they try to fix the infrastructure. We see in the dwellings unit or private space, they try to put some regulation that every building must have a toilet, sufficient openings, and fire resistance. And in the hospital or in the public space, they use new materials like brass doorknob as bacterial preventions. And in urban planning, they created, the government, created an urban sewerage system. The road is widened and striped for ventilations. City zoning regulations and building distance are regulated. Courtyard settlement became popular. So we see that in the 19th century, architecture and urban design and urban planning already respond to the pandemic. And then in 1855 until 1959, we have pests or third, known as third plague, caused by rats or by mouse. So we are trying, the word trying, to restrict rat mobilization, avoid creating dam and dark spaces. And we see architecture and urban planning also react to this pandemic. In the dwelling or in the private space, change in the designs of the drain pipes occur, doors and building foundation to reduce humidity, which is loved by the rats. And concrete become popular material, not just because for its easy to form, but also for health reasons. Ground floor level should be higher than road level so the rat cannot penetrate our house. In the hospital, concrete become more popular, and in urban planning, the road was paved with concrete block. Many buildings were smoke. Even some cities burn part of the areas in order to avoid rat. And then we have Spanish influenza, which occurred many times in 1918, 1957, 1968. And our behavior also changed. We prioritize fresh air circulation and direct sunlight for public spaces. And the response in architecture and to urban planning is also quite significant. Ceramic tile as kitchen floor for easy maintenance and cleaning are become popular. In the hospitals, open air principles are implemented. Fresh air and sunshine are allowed to penetrate the rooms. Many temporary hospital constructions are carried out to host new patients. Hygiene standards are getting higher. In urban planning, public events are held in open spaces and attendants wearing masks. The centralized public health system, which is usually owned by the government, is seed for the formation of WHO. And TB, this is one of the trigger of modern architecture. I think I lost. Wait. Can you still hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we can still
Yes,
hear
okay.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, the connection is unstable again. Okay, in tuberculosis, this is one that form modern architecture. Sufficient sunlight, moderate exercise, avoid narrow and dim spaces. And dwelling and in hospital and also in urban planning, we also react to this pandemic. Wide and high openings, flat roof, balcony. Flat roof is important because we can use it as balcony. I will come to this later on. Bright and interior as direct sunlight comes in. Floor and one furniture and wall and furniture surface has to be easy maintenance. And in hospital, it's also used as a quarantine space. So it's like a double function as a hotel and as a hospital. They have wide balconies where people can do sunbathing, and they also have a lot of semi-outdoor sports. In urban planning, a summer house concept emerged as an escape from the city. Garden city concept in England and light river movement in Germany. city parks become popular. Let us see how Alvar Aalto respond to this pandemic. So he designed a hospital, which he said the main purpose of the building is to function as a medical instrument, not just as a hospital, but it's part of the medical instrument. We see they have this building have flat roof where people can do sunbathing. They have very wide balconies where people can also lying here to get sunbathing, and the rooms is very bright where sunlight can penetrate into the room. Alvar Aalto also designs many parts of the buildings in response to the pandemics, like this wash basin. He called it noiseless wash basins, and then the door opening he designed where we can use our elbow to open the doors. We cannot, we don't have to use our palm to open the door, but we only need our elbows. He also designed this kind of keys for all the hospital doors. So we see that some architects respond to the pandemic by refining the designs. But what about COVID-19? Have we do sufficient effort, yeah, in designing our built environments? Let us see how this virus affected the world. So when I get this data, I think it's last Saturday, I opened the Worldometric. I see that the COVID-19 is affecting 219 countries and territories. So almost all part of the world is get infected. So it causes more than almost 3 million deaths, and the total cases is more than 100 million. We see it is still increasing. The trend shows the total cases is still increasing. This is the daily new cases. It somehow it is declining here, but then it's increasing again. And total new cases and total recoveries, we have more new cases than more recoveries. This means that the virus is not yet over. It is still with us, and it is spread through globalization, to global movement. This is the air traffic network before the COVID-19. We see people are moving from one places to other places. This have the spread of the virus. And how can we stop the spread of the virus? This is countries and territories that are affected by the virus. So many countries close the doors. They close the airport. They implement lockdown, either in city level or in country level. In France, last week they start another lockdown in France and Poland, and then in the Philippines they're using one of the longest lockdown to strengthen his grip on the Philippines. So we are trying to stop the spread of the virus by staying at home. This is how the Balinese respond to the virus. They use offerings, they pray to the god for the virus to stop spreading. So it is interesting how the traditional people respond to the spread of the virus. And then because this virus is spreading from human to human, then a new policy, work from home policies were established. It looks fun at the beginning, so we can stay at home while keep being productive. We can work with our pets and lying on the floor. But then it starts to be frustrating because there are more disturbance at home than in the office. And in the case of Bali, Bali is a province in Indonesia which is live from tourists. Without international flight, many shops are closed. Many businesses have to stop the operations, and the streets are empty. This is in Ubud, where I came from. So we see Ubud is a very crowded place daily before the coronavirus came in, and then today these localities are very empty. No one on the street, and very few shops are open. And in traditional markets, people who are working in the office, in informal working situations, they still can be productive. But people on the street who are living day to day from selling foods, they are affected economically. So we see that apart from impacting our health, so the virus also impacting our economic. So this is the projections that in Europe, the economic will decline to minus 9.5. In the US, it might decline minus 5.5. And what about in developing and emerging economies? So this Euromonitor predicted minus 4.1 economic GDP, economic growth. Then, in order to help the economic, the WHO established a new policy. They call it new normal. So this new normal is implemented in some places where the cases are going down. Some control measures are being lifted. However, this does mean that we should go back to the old normal. That's what WHO said. So they established certain policies like this on the second posters. We have to wash our hands frequently. We cover cough and sneezes, avoiding touching our face, etc. So the aim is to live with the virus, because if we avoid living with the virus, so our economic will keep declining, and the words are worried that we will get infected. Not only our health but also our economic will getting worse. So the new normal is like a bridge where we can live with the virus and we can still be productive. So how is the new normal impacted our built environment? This is I will reflect on my own experience. So before I got infected, I have my neighbors. So in Asia, I mean in Indonesia, we used to have our neighbor when they have like we call it hajatan. So earlier this year, one of my neighbors married the one of the kids. So I should have them preparing the ceremony. So this is the situation where I do my activities, where we did our activities. There are a lot of people, so it is in a traditional neighborhood. So the activities is indoors, somehow indoors, somehow sometimes it's outdoors. So I interact with more than 30 people for 3 hours for 2 days. 3 hours one day, and I did it for 2 days. It's a very intense interactions, and the health protocol are very loose. We are using masks, but not very tight. And then the next day, I went to a traditional market. I did shopping with my wife. So it is like an open market. I think in Kuala Lumpur, we also have this kind of market, outdoor or open air markets. So I interact with more than 20 people, mostly trader and food sellers. Again, the health protocol is very loose because although we wear masks, but we used to put our mask in our chin, not covering our face. I spent like 1 hour in this traditional market. And then I also had a meeting here with my colleagues in my office, in the campus. I work daily with at least 8 people. In this room, the room is indoor. It's air conditioning room and not so well ventilated. And because we we believe that our college is also in a good condition, in a good health condition, so we don't implement very strict health protocol, so it's very loose protocol. And on one day, I also spent 2 days in my kampung, in my place of birth, to celebrate traditional ceremonies where our extended families come from a different part of of Bali to pray in our family temple. So it's about 8 hours of very intense interaction, but we implement very strict protocol because 3 of my extended family were medical persons. 3 are doctors, so they suggest that we have to have very strict health protocols. But then, of course, I interact with my families, with my family member, with my wife, and our kids at our home. So it is indoor, and we also share same cars to go anywhere. And then I've got symptoms. So early days, I've got fever, dry cough, and then fatigue, and I feel very uncomfortable. And then the next days, I've got more symptoms like sore throat, diarrhea, losing smells and taste. And then I got hospitalized. And in the hospital, I've experienced difficulty breathing. I feel my chest is very painful, and it's like something pressing my chest. So in the hospitals, they are full of COVID patients. They need more beds every day because there are a lot of people get infected by the virus. And then they also implement new standards where all medical persons, they use astronaut-like uniform, and they implement a very strict protocol to protect medical staff. And the function of hospital is as a quarantine space. Therefore, other patients should be set aside. What I cannot and can do during I've got infected by the COVID, I cannot leave the hospital. I cannot see friends and family members physically. I cannot dine in a restaurant, walk and meet in office, go to bookshop or any shops, and I could not go traveling. But I can connect virtually with the world. I can do video calls, I can order food from my device, and I also have virtual meeting, and I can work from the hospital. I can browse and buy book online. I can even enjoy virtual tour to more places than I could go physically. So what does this mean? This means that travel is restricted. Social and psychological, my social and physical well-being is affected. But I have to maintain my productivities. This means that digital transformation is taking place. So what is the design agenda when travel is restricted, social and psychological well-being is affected, but our productivity should be maintained? Elizabeth Diller from Diller and So Video Office said that the pandemic is a problem that is going to be solved by medicine and not cured by architecture. But it is not just the virus. So the virus itself can be cured by medicine. But again, as Elizabeth Diller said, it is not just the virus. It is this change of the speed of society, where the old architecture was too slow to react and very chaotic and heavy and expensive. In the beginning, Pak Abdul Muluk said that Grab food is now everywhere. This is how our behavior changed. So again, the virus can be cured by medicine, but our built environment should react or should respond to the virus. So there are two behavioral transformations when the COVID-19 outbreak occurred. The first one is self-isolation. We need space for doing self-quarantine, physical and social distancing. We need to do mild exercise, and we have to consume healthy food. What if the fires occur in a wider area, let's say regional area? So we have to do regional isolation or lockdown. So in the regional isolation, we have to minimize our mobility, restrict access to public transportation, improve immunity and hygiene. So this is two things that I think that will influence the way we design our built environment in the future. Let us see some space design post COVID-19. Uh, this how it will change in domestic space, in working space, and in urban space. In domestic space, for instance, we have to put washing areas and bathroom in the front of the house. We no longer have to put it in the back of the house because uh, as soon as we arrive at home, we have to take a bath, we have to clean ourselves, and then we have to change clothes, and then we enter the other rooms. So the bathroom and the washing areas, it is necessary to put this bathroom and washing areas in front of the house, and we will need more personal space to support the needs of the house as a workspace, because we will be very often doing or working from home. We need personal space, but we have to be very careful with this personal space because we can get bored easily. Uh, Sitting in a room, let's say 4 by 4 meter in one room for 8 hours will be very boring. So we need more ventilations so that we can change the view, not only looking at our computers or our laptops. And we need very clear dividers for each room. Not only in our in domestic space, we have to also change our working space. We need new office layout. We need more individual workspace, clear guidelines on how to use the space. So maybe we will live like robots because everything should be regulated. Using the computer should be regulated, taking food should be regulated, and visiting our colleagues' cubicles will be regulated. We will need in the office, especially in vertical office, we will need more stairs and escalators because the capacity of the elevators will be lower, and then we will need more ventilations. Also, we need clear dividers for each rooms. And what about in urban space? During the lockdowns, we see more people walking than using public transportation. We see more bike on the streets than cars, and this means that we will need carless city space. We will need less public transport. Therefore, walkable and self-sufficient neighborhood should be think of in these situations. How can one a neighborhood still productive while there are no cars on streets? And we will need more greeneries to provide us with fresh and clean air. Uh, and we need wider sidewalk and bike paths because more people will use individual transport. The easiest is walking to office or walking to groceries, but then for longer distance we can use bike. This is some sort of situation like at home we will the concept of small office and home office will be more popular, and again we need to think about that we will stay in this kind of space for 8 hours, so we have to think about the design of the room. How can we not get bored easily in a very small space where we work alone, there are no colleagues to talk with, and then we will need easy to clean materials. We might will think about how the building will operate, like the way we lock the doors and the way we take, like let's say this is the office situations. We need this kind of bubble glasses to divide us with our colleagues, but we still can interact with one another. And then in the lift This is in the elevator. We need to operate it with our foot, no longer with touch, but with our foot. Some architects try to develop guidelines like Perkins and Will. They establish guidelines for safe return to the office during COVID-19. This is how they suggest the office layout should be rearranged. So the red dot is empty, should be empty, should be left vacant, while the green dots are occupied. The distance, Perkins and Will suggest that we have to maintain a 6 feet distance when walking in between back-to-back workstation, but this will be very challenging. We can reduce the capacity of the building, but what about our, let's say, walking spaces, circulation spaces? It will be very difficult. And this is how the workstations would be rearranged. This is how the office should look like during the COVID-19 pandemic. And American Institute of Architects established design strategies for safer schools post-COVID-19. Let us see how they do it. So they try to lower the capacity of its classes. They said 6 will be very effective for one classroom. So this is how the situation, so we can still maintain our distance. And NACTO also established a street for pandemic response, how we should design our streets. There are a lot of design criteria like critical services, managing speeds, sidewalk extension, safe crossing, open play street, etc. So all are intending at how to stop or how to reduce the spread of the virus. These are some of the suggestions how to design active streets during the pandemic situation. And World Economic Forum said that we have to think about how to add more beds to our hospital when this kind of pandemic, not only COVID-19, maybe in the future there are more pandemic will occur. They said we have to think other materials like containers. We can transform containers into emergency hospitals, hospital rooms. Architecture will continue to develop in step with the COVID-19. We need to adaptation and innovations are needed to respond positively to change. So in Southeast Asian cases, we have this kind of environment. We have a very crowded market. We have a very intense interaction with one another, and we have a lot of cultural festivals where many people are gathered together in one space, in one public space. I think behavioral adaptations is the key. So because we have a rooted tradition with so strong social cohesions, and we have very plural societies with people who have many background, and they all are gathered in the traditional market. So behavioral adaptation is the key. Here, how the urban design principle may change in response to COVID-19. There are a lot of urban design principles, but I will take like 5 basic principles, like enhance livability, creating communities, expanding opportunity, promote equality, foster sustainability. So usually we understand like enhance livability as offer the widest possibility, individual choices for living healthier. We have to think about new health system. What will be happening if the pandemic occurs, where the hospitals are full of people with similar symptoms? We need good governance who can tackle the issues of economic and social challenge instead of only health problems. we need safety issues, we need social security, but we have to maintain our cultural identity. This will be very challenging. And what about the creating community? We now have a digital community. How will our urban design respond to digital community, to the digital nomad, where we can stay in Bali, but our office is actually in New York, for instance. We have a lot of virtual meetings. What about opportunities? Cities without tourism industry, what will happening if there is no global tourist, or there is no international flight? We have to think about this kind of opportunities. What about online trading, virtual marketplace versus traditional market? And then sustainability, what will happen if there is partial lockdown? We have to think about self-sufficient issues, where our city can fulfill all their needs without the help of other cities. And this will be my last slide. I take it from Ashraf M. Salama. Beyond the new normal, we can see in the middle of the graph there are 9 circles, but beyond new normal we have 3 bigger circles. That is that issues are beyond the new normal. Beyond the new normal, for instance, emerging spatial environments, accommodating new living and working patterns. We will have new living and working patterns, and that new living and working patterns we need new spatial requirements. How will we accommodate that? We need new standard and specifications for new home and work environments. What are the specifications? These are the tasks of the architects. Work-based life modes as determinant of home environments, and a lot of new things we have to think when we have to respond to the pandemic. That what Ashraf M. Salama said, beyond the new normal. So that's the task of architect, urban designer, and urban planning in responding to the COVID. As Elizabeth Diller said, the virus can be cured by medicine, but this is not just the virus. It is how will we live in the future, and how will we live in the future partly become the responsibility of architect, urban planner, and urban designers. Thank you. I think that's my talk for this morning. Thank you, Pak Abdul Muluk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra, for a very insightful and thought-provoking as well. So the next, we're gonna open the floor to questions, and hopefully Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra can answer the questions.
Yeah.
And have a question, you can just forward the question now. Maybe introduce yourself first before you ask the questions. I have a question myself. I think let me start the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Okay, for a place like Bali, which is basically almost solely the economic activity is related to tourism. How is the community cope with this, which is already over than 1 year, I think?
Yeah.
You know, how does the community at the grassroots levels impacted by this pandemic?
Yeah, there are a lot of debate about the government's policies, because the government closed the airport. Some said closing the airport is a good policy, but many of people who are working in tourism industry say this is a very stupid policy. There are a lot of debate, and then not only people who are directly working in tourism industry, but also farmers are infected. The farmers whose products are usually absorbed by hotels are now struggling to selling their products, because no hotels, no restaurants are open. So the products are now, let's say, no one buy their products. we can buy, let's say, lobster, which is very expensive now, very cheap in Bali. Many expensive foods are now we can find it in traditional market, which is usually in a very high end restaurants. Now we can see it in traditional markets. And in Indonesia, Bali experienced the lowest economic growth, almost -12 by the end of last year, while other province like Yogyakarta -3 or -5, and in Kalimantan they still in positive growth. But Bali we experienced -12% growth.
How does the education sector, like the university, are impacted by this pandemic?
Universities education at high school or university level maybe not so hard impacted, but in the elementary schools, because they don't used to use like this kind of application or device, so it's very difficult. So the parents should accompany the kids while the parent also have to work. So it's a difficult situation in elementary schools level, but in university I think the students can cope with the situation very easy.
Like in your university, do you have international students?
Oh yes, we have like maybe 10% are international. They are mostly from Timor-Leste. It is very difficult for them to follow this kind of situations. Let's say two of my students last week they said they could not follow the situations. They don't attend any of the online meetings. So I have to find a way. How can we cope with the situations?
How?
I don't know yet. We still do like online. We try to find what is the easiest for them, not the easiest for us. I myself give more tutorial for them rather than classroom meetings online.
From your
Tutorials
experience, is this
convenient for them, for the international.
this online interaction with students is the same as like face-to-face kind of interaction?
No, it's very different. Online meeting is more difficult than face-to-face meetings, especially in the studio. That's why, as the head of the department, I allowed all studios to go offline. But consequently, we have to provide big rooms for all studios to go offline.
So your studio is still face-to-face?
Yes, still face-to-face, but we divided into 3 big rooms. One class is divided into 3 big groups.
Okay. Okay, anyone have any questions? I think Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra will not only can touch about post-COVID-19 pandemic architecture, he also can answer your query, general topics. Correct not, Mr. Mahaputra?
Yeah, I will try to respond to your questions, to any questions.
Any question? I can
Because
see
you are.
Can I have some words from Dr. Lim?
Hi, good morning.
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 I just one question on a personal level. How was your experience after the treatment of the COVID-19? Because we have heard that some people develop some side effects or long-term uneasiness, abnormality, or feel differently even after you have recovered from the COVID situation. So maybe you can share with us your own experience. Thank you.
Yeah, I was afraid that I will have long COVID symptoms because 2 weeks after I got recovered, I still have very cough. My wife also still have, after 2 weeks, been diagnosed negative. Both of us still have like a very small cough, and we read a lot of articles about how to cope with long COVID. But thankfully now I fully recovered. But the doctor said I don't need vaccine until 3 months, while all of our colleagues in the office, they already get one or two doses of vaccine. My wife and I, we still don't have vaccine up till now. The doctor said after 3 months recovered from COVID-19, then we have to get vaccine. But once again, responding to your questions, at the moment I feel very, very well. I think I have fully recovered from the COVID-19 because I don't have any other disease, other side disease.
What about your family? I heard, you know, when you were admitted in the hospital, you took the whole family into your ward.
My family, because all of us, 5 of us, get infected by the virus. So all of us were in the hospital.
Positive of COVID-19.
Share same room in the hospital. But yeah, because of COVID-19. But we have a different speed of recovery. My kids, 3 of my kids, diagnosed negative after 2 weeks. I myself after 29 days, and my wife after 3 weeks.
So how do you cope when the children has back at home and you are still in the hospital?
Yeah, we still have video call, so I use video call to contact my families because they allow us to talk virtually in the hospital. They allow us to do that, and I still can work from the hospital. I read a lot of books, and I still have like online meetings while in the hospital.
Okay, going back to design, because I think, like I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why we invited architecture is the theme of our Studio 6 design is to consider about post-COVID-19 design. As I mentioned to you, now there are more delivery services being in the market. So whenever you go, you can always see lineup of motorbikes in front of a buildings, you know, like Food
Yes.
Panda, Grab Food and all that, because there are no proper or, you know, properly designed space for them to do delivery of products. So I think maybe this should be the first thing, because I think even after the pandemic is over, because people are so used to ordering things online, so more product will be delivered to offices. And you know, certain management of condominiums or housing area, they do not allow this delivery people to enter into their premise. So usually the delivery is done at the lobby, you know, at outside of the premise, which is not a proper place in terms of hygiene and also in terms of security, because some product can get mistook because they are relying now on the security guards to do something out, you know. So I think that maybe you can share us some thoughts on what are these additional spaces required for us to handle the changes of the habits among us on any buildings.
Yeah, in that kind of building, we usually have like rifle halls, but for people. Now we need like rifle halls for Grab Food drivers. I think that will be one important requirement in any buildings. And this kind of building also will need delivery inside of the building. Delivery people, they have to send the food from delivery halls to each room that order the foods. And not only in the building, but also in the way we selling things may change. That will change our restaurant designs, we need to provide like also like order space, order halls where the Grab driver should line in front of the restaurant, not only on the building where they send food, but where they take food. The food also, we have to think about the new spaces in that areas, I think. So it's a two-way situation where they send and where they get the food. So then they will link these two spaces. The driver will link these two different spaces, and in the where they send food, we need more people, more workers to send the food to the rooms, to each room that order the food.
Okay. Any question from the public? Architect Embong, do you have any question for our speaker?
Maybe you can share your thought, Dr. Embong.
I first thought that it's easier for Bali to control because you are quite isolated. You can close all the borders, but that is not the case in Bali.
Yeah, but when we close our border, that tourists also cannot come in. So in health issue, we can cope, I think, quite easily because we can close. We have 3 international borders from air travel and from sea travels. But when we close that doors, then the tourists cannot come in, and our economic situation is getting worse. So now we have to think about how to cope with the virus without closing the borders. That's the challenge for the architects and urban design.
So they are still closed for domestic?
Yes, for domestic, they are open for domestic, but with very strict protocols.
Oh, okay.
And I think the tourists also, they are afraid to go to Bali. They are still think twice or 3 times before traveling.
Not only to Bali, I think to everywhere. You know,
Everywhere. Yeah.
Now the restriction has been a little bit relaxed. I mean, I can call myself an avid traveler. I have not made any plan to travel for the next years. You know, so I think the same as like Architect Embong. He's actually travel all over the world. You know, but for the past year, I don't think he has made any plans to travel anywhere. Correct?
Yeah, we have to stop everything now.
Yeah.
Only virtual tour, yeah.
Yes. So, okay, in UITM, how do you cope with, architecture education? Have your studios start open?
Yes, we have started. We started yesterday for new semester, and we called in 3 cohort, 3 batches to come in for the first half of the semester, and then we will call the next batch for the second half of the semester. So it's a combination, it's a hybrid of half semester with face-to-face and half semester of online. Yes.
So meaning that after half semester, this the current one that go face-to-face will go online?
No, yeah, they will go back home and then we will continue online. Yeah.
That is interesting. I mean, like, how do you, I mean, for the cohort that get the chance to the early stage when they have the final stage online, early stage face-to-face, final stage online, as compared to the other group that got, online first phase and offline second phase.
Yeah, we have to strategize. Normally, we put the first year on the mental studio and the final year towards the end. Yeah, because we coach them face-to-face for their final portfolio. Yeah, because it's very important for them to really produce. And we have 2 studios with a full online because they are intermediate students, so they can manage themselves online. So we allow the intermediate studio to be online 100%. So our priority is the fundamental
First.
final year.
Ah.
What about long-term action? I mean, this question is for both university since you guys are here. You ITM and do you? I mean, this is I think probably is a short-term measure, right? What is the long-term measures of facing this pandemic? Maybe like Dr. Mangde mentioned just now. You know, we may anticipate a different variant of COVID-19 or maybe another round of pandemics. So, is there any long-term plan for how these things are going to be handled?
We started last semester, and it seems it works. The arrangement works quite well. So we see the student benefited when they were called in to be face-to-face in studio. So we try with more group this semester. Hopefully, if the pandemic is still going on for October semester, we might call everyone, but we have to divide into stages probably. But hopefully, towards the end of the year, we have all vaccinated. Hopefully, we can face to next year.
Yeah, like in Bali, all the lecturer has been vaccinated.
Yes, yes. All
Oh.
the lecturers have been vaccinated.
Okay. What about the students? Are they also now vaccinated?
I don't know yet what about the students, but I think our campus provide vaccine station for all of our staffs, and I think our student will also be served by the vaccines.
Oh, so now 100% of your staff has been vaccinated,
Yes.
except you, because you have.
Yeah, just recover.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's very good. That's
Yeah.
very
Because we have medical department, so the medical department work to get the dose of the vaccine for all staffs.
Good. I mean, I think UiTM also have medical department. UTA also have medical
they do.
department, but we didn't get our vaccine yet.
I think the first phase is for frontliner, so those who are working in hospital only.
Yeah,
So the lecturers in faculty of medicine and dentistry, they got the vaccine already, but other faculty no.
Okay. Just now you mentioned about the traditional market. I think traditional market in Bali also is similar to the traditional market in Malaysia. Over here we call pasar malam, you know.
Yes.
You know, because of this pandemic, also now there are more and more street vendors, you know.
Yes.
So somehow it's conflicted with the local authority policy where they want to regulate, you know, places for people to do business. So how do you think this pandemic will impact in terms of the street vendors?
Yeah, as you mentioned, first we will have more street vendors. That's very correct. We see them everywhere now. Second, we have more food variations because these street vendors, they try to innovate with foods. They don't want to sell similar food with the peers or with other street vendors. We have more choices now. But in terms of the space use, we have to think about this. First, I think the first concern is to hygiene issues. How hygienic are the food that they're selling? And the second one is about the social distancing that they invite. I mean, each street vendor will invite people. If there are, let's say, 10 street vendors in one street, then it will become a big market if they can attract, let's say, each street vendor attract 10 people at one time, and we have 10 street vendors that will be that in one street will be 100 people who are on the street. We have to think about how our space will respond to these situations. And in the market, in the traditional market, I think they already have their own regulations. But on the street, on the new street, that's we have to think about. The temporary seller, this require new strategies, I think.
What about by incorporating them in new building design, meaning that can we put it that any new building should provide space for street vendors?
Okay.
This is a bit of urban design, eh?
Yeah, this is a urban design and also transportation design, because we try to reduce car use in these situations. Maybe we will have more spaces on the street or on the parking areas, because people are not going to the office because they are working from home. So we will have more parking spaces that we can use for this kind of vendors. I think we can think about this kind of situations. There are a lot of opportunities if we can respond it positively.
Because our Studio 6 project this semester is an institution. The typology is an institution. Yeah, designing institutions. I mean, for various things like most of it are related to vocational training. And the site is in Kampung Baru, a traditional Malay village in the middle of Kuala Lumpur. So, this is actually a real issue. One of the sites is actually located to the famous street market, they call it, street food street, where the stretch of even though the authority tried to regulate the vendors by providing like a proper space, but as you mentioned just now, one vendor would attract 10. When you have 100 vendors, you have a lot of people, so it's very difficult to maintain social distancing. So any thoughts in this kind of issues, how the student can maybe facilitate, so maybe part of their design should be hosting this street vendors, so their environment will be much better rather than outside in the street or something like that. Any thoughts to this?
If we cannot regulate the space, maybe we can regulate time. Opening time can be regulated. It's about space and time. We have very limited space, but then we can also regulate opening times. Maybe certain seller can open at certain time, so the next space will be the same space will be occupied by different seller. But that's a choice. Space and time is a choice where we can work with space and with time, and then we can respond it with our designs. I think the student can think about that kind of situations.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? It seems that I'm the only one that asked questions here. I hope it's not become like a dialogue between me and Dr. I see Encik Rahim here, our senior lecturer. Encik Rahim, maybe you want to say a few words or share a few questions.
Hello, Senyaman, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, doing good. How are you?
Thank you, Jim. Hello. Okay, actually not much of a question yet, because but it's a thank you for sharing your experience and your personal experience with the COVID and all those very interesting. I just want to share a bit. I have a good discussion this morning over the phone with my my good friend and ex-partner in Langkawi. Yeah, you heard of Langkawi before?
Yes.
Okay, so he used to have a chalet there and all that, doing the tourism and all that. And I gave him some design support quite a number of years ago. So now he said that due to COVID, his business is really all the few chalet they have now turned into a storeroom for now. So we were talking about design a bit. I mean, I can he had no clean idea whatsoever. The architect next season of COVID, maybe another few years from now, hopefully not, that will be more prepared. But he said, being an operator for a number of years, he's been in the tourism industry for I think 15 years already. He said he have no idea of how architecture or building design can be channeled so that they can still be, I mean, in a way, still do some business during this kind of pandemic. So any solution, he said, he prayed to Allah that we all be rewarded well for our designs. It was a really a totally desperate situations. Even Malaysia has opened the public traveling through public transportation system for tourism. He said it doesn't really help because people are really scared of what's going on with the pandemic. So like you mentioned just now, Dr. Nyoman, that if you cannot do on design, maybe it's on a time span, maybe on a bit of different dimension that as an architect, they have to think to get our design to, to help in a way for those people who are affected by the pandemic.
Cik Rahim, you are frozen.
Yeah.
No, my line with Celcom. Celcom my telephone do not like me. Is it really no idea on the how in terms of architecture design that a chalet or hotel can be designed in any way so that it will help if any of this kind of scale of pandemic happen again. Is their concern really? In fact, he said if we architects can have a conference, can have a group meeting, discussion, whatever, not on the topic, in terms of design or in terms of what can they do, in terms of facilities, in terms of whatever, to help in this kind of situation. He said, God help us. He's so desperate. He's really so desperate.
Yeah.
So there is just something to share, in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
So quite interesting. So I think the sharing today is actually very helpful, Thinking about another dimension, I think that's a big clue. Thank you for that. Thank you. All right. That's all that I can share.
Okay, thank you, Cik Rahim.
Thank you.
So I think the hotel industry in Bali also is very much impacted, right? Is there any thoughts on the design that maybe can cater for these situations?
Yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, some hotels are trying to change their business from serving tourists to serving people who needs to do quarantine. So people who get infected but with a very low symptom or very mild symptom, they can stay in a hotel. But now they could no longer do that because people prepare to stay at home when they get infected by the virus, no longer go to the hotels because it's very expensive as well. And some hotels are being sold, and not only people who work in the hotel, but also in travel industries. They start selling the cars, selling the motorbikes that will usually they rent it to tourists.
Okay. So, and I open the questions to the floor. I see Encik Razak is here. Encik Razak, welcome to the room. Can you say a few words, Encik Razak? Okay, anyone else want to ask anything to Dr. Mangde? We still have about 10 minutes, I think. We end the session at 11:30. Zaujan, you have any questions for esteemed guests here?
No. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Similar with my students. My students are very shy to ask questions. Okay, I think the student they already have the schematic design, right? They are now trying to make it make it more perfect. They can use these issues to think about it or to evaluate their designs, the schematic design.
Actually, it's not schematic. They already moved on to their technical already.
Technical.
They're supposed to finalize their spaces, and now they are looking into the technical aspect like construction system, mechanical, and things like that. But as I mentioned, they still have about 3 more weeks before the final submission and of their work. So because one of the exercise that they did in the week 1 is to explore all these issues about related to post COVID-19, like hygiene issues and also spatial issues. I did mention about automation as well, so because there will be in the future where things will be delivered using drone. So probably, maybe they will have to start considering of places where they need to land their drone, on the building to receive delivery, even though it's not widely used yet. But there are some area which the things has started. So as always, architect is always the one that responded earlier to any new technology or anything. So I feel that maybe they would want to consider that. So these are the things that we raised last Friday when their interim creed, when we still didn't see any of this yet on their design. It's just like any other normal design. They don't provide space for delivery. They don't provide space for mechanical and electrical things, telecommunication. We mentioned also about in the future, there will be a lot more reliance on telecommunications. So there will be space dedicated for these, telecommunication services. We don't want seeing all this satellite dish all over your building. So we want that as a special space that to cater for all the requirements. So I think it is still very useful. So I think after this, I will ask your permission to maybe share your slides with them, so they can they can digest it more on what are the things that they need to address in related to natural sunlight. You mentioned that was also something which not many of them have addressed. Like we need more natural ventilation, we need more natural lighting, to have a more conducive working space. So I think these are the simple action or simple things that they can provide in their design that relate to the post-pandemic. Because as you mentioned, throughout the years, architects try to respond on how to provide more better indoor environment for people. So like when the tuberculosis came in, that is when they start to have balconies in buildings where they can have natural sunlight. And I think the same also with COVID, because in the early stage when they haven't found the cure for COVID, some of them actually encourage their patients to go outside of the hospital ward, around 8 in the morning until 10. Get natural vitamin D, or from the sunlight. So I think that's also some of the passive design that can be incorporated into their design. So I hope the students will take note. And this afternoon we're gonna, after this talk session, we're gonna have our studio session, and I hope the student will incorporate this and all the things that you have mentioned just now about design of allowing more natural lights, more natural ventilation to go through your buildings in order to create a healthy, more healthier environment. So any other questions from anyone here? Otherwise, I will ask Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra to sort of like 5 minutes wrap up of the talk before we end the session.
Okay. Usually at this level, I mean in the studio level, the students tend to pay more attention to building appearance. They try to make a spectacular volumetric buildings. They try to play with structure. They try to play with outer skins. But now we have to think about how it works, how the building works. We have to think about social, economic, and also healthcare issues. we have to think about how will our buildings serve the speed of the community. We are speeding up now. The community are running very fast, and how do we respond to that speed of the community? It is not only moving forward, but it also sometimes take turn very rapidly. Sometimes we are experience very rapid change in the way we live, and architecture is let's say a knowledge that is very slow. For a building to get built, we need at least 2 years, while the speed of the community cannot wait for the buildings to to, to finish. So we have to design how our buildings will work in serving the speed of the community. I think that's our task now, not just the spectacular building appearance. That is important, but I think how it works will be more essential in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think any other questions before I wrap up the sessions? Okay, if there's no further questions, I would like to thank Dr. E. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra from Universitas Warmadewa to spare his very precious time to share with us not only on the topic, but also his personal experience infected by COVID-19, and also, how as the head of architecture department, he managed to, maintain his productivity while being warded in the hospital for 29 days. So I think that's very, very extraordinary things that can happen to someone, So, and also it will make us more aware that this COVID-19 is very real. It infected real people, and the impact is really impacting real society. Maybe before this, we only hear from, third party or from the news, but now we hear from someone who has been infected by COVID-19. And being an architect, being a researcher, being a head of department of an architecture school in Bali, which is the most impacted place on earth, of this pandemic, is very, very good to us for our knowledge and also for our own precautions. And I want to thank all who has come to this talk. And I think on behalf of COSA, I think is Dr. Lim still here? Maybe you can say something, because this is a COSA series of talk. We have other invited speaker for this series of talk also. So I just want to check whether Dr. Lim is still here. Oh, Dr. Lim is not here. Puan Rahmawati is here. Puan Rahmawati, do you want to say anything before we end up the session?
No, Encik Rahim. And Encik Muluk also, okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, thank you.
So, okay, since Dr. Lim has left, on behalf of COSA, I would like to thank Dr. Nyoman Gede Mahaputra for coming to our talk. And hopefully we can arrange for another talk, maybe on the second semester. For everyone's information, next semester we're going to have 15 students from Universitas Warmadewa joining our design studio. So this is for the next semester. So yeah, next semester. So now they are preparing their students on English courses. So I'm very much looking forward to have students from Warmadewa joining our studio. So maybe we can have more exchange of experience and information between us. And I would like to thank Architect Embong for coming to the talk. So looking forward to be invited to your CREAT. And I also would like to invite you in advance. Our final CREAT is coming up in I think 4 weeks time.
Oh, okay.
It's going to be face-to-face CREAT. First time after I think 1.5 years that we didn't have a big crowd, and because I have 55 students,
Wow.
55 students in 5 groups, so we expected to have about 30 or 40 external panelists to help us in the creek. So you know. So not only Architect Embong, maybe from the whole architecture department in UiTM Puncak Alam. Thank you very much. I think we're going to end this session, and I hope to see you all in our next COSA lecture series. And for the students, don't forget to scan the QR code, because this is part of your attendance as well. And thank you very much, and see you all next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nyoman.
Thank you, Dr. Embong.
Thank you, Dr. Yaman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Nyaman,
Cik
Mr. Muluk.
Muluk.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bone too, yes.
I joined late.